All right, Team 50, we're pretty fired up. We're 1 week away at this point in time. We'll be down in Florida and Clearwater, and that's pretty awesome. The weather looks gorgeous. We've been training at a really high level. Our pitchers and hitters have been facing each other for quite a large quantity of ABs. And so I know we're all ready to have an umpire back there and have an opponent in the other dugout. And it's a great group. It's super athletic, a lot of unknowns, a lot of question marks still, which is exciting, which makes things super competitive at practice. And so I couldn't be any more pleased as a coach of where we are with training. Looking ahead over this next week, we are going to get outside almost every day but tomorrow. So that's pretty exciting as well.
I'll start. Brooke mentioned how there's just a bunch of players that can play a bunch of different positions on defense. So kind of just, can you expand on that a little bit and like creating the lineup for the first week?
Yeah, very few kids are penned in when you look at a weekend. And so when you look at people like Brooke and Cora, obviously those are two everyday starters. I think Taryn has emerged as an everyday starter in the infield as well as a freshman. And so both of our corners, are going to be up for grabs in terms of who's hitting. I think those three are going to be anchored defensively. Cora will bounce in and out, in the infield and outfield. And so how that will look is who's on the mound and who's behind the plate. Because of course, Bree Copeland's a stick that will be in the lineup. So if she's on the mound, that'll look very different. The infield. If she's not on the mound, she'll probably be over at third or first. So that makes things looking different. Got some sluggers like Sarah Stone. Avery Parker's coming on really strong as a freshman as well. So a lot of sticks getting the lineup. Obviously we know Lindsay Warwick and what she can do behind the plate. So that's great to just, even though we are going to be pitching by committee, it's nice to have such a solid hand behind the plate. In addition, add an Avery with her. So feel very good about that. The most competitive places are in the outfield. I've got a lot of depth there.
So far in this preseason, fall included, Cora and Brooke talked about the competitive, dynamic nature of Team 50 so far. But I'd like to hear in your words, what are the characteristics that you see out of this group heading into the first game?
Very similar to Team 49, athletic. I think when I look at our team, you can't help but notice they pass the eye test. They look good in their uniforms. You go over into the weight room. They're moving some weight. You come out on the ball field and they're able to go first to third. They're able to swipe bags. They're able to drop bombs here at Andy Moore Field. So in terms of just overall athleticism, it's amazing to see the strides and the growth from our first season here all the way up through now entering season 6. So I'd say athleticism is huge. That'd be the first and foremost when I look at our team. As far as competitiveness, what we're seeing is how that manifests in training. Take for example somebody like Aaliyah Andrews. That's a spot out in the outfield. We got 8 different kids, and really when you're looking at hitting, 16 people could be thrown out there, right? Because you want hitters in the lineup. And what I've seen is Aaliyah training at a really high level over the last couple of weeks because there's so many things up for grabs out there. So I think the competitive nature manifests in the way of, hey, there's spots up for grabs, go get them. And that's what I like in terms of competitive excellence.
Team 49 season last year in the walk-off at state, Big Ten tournament. Is there a hunger within this group now coming off of last season? Do you see that hunger? I
see that hunger every day. I think how we've got to translate that hunger from the initial, we look at success, and significant success is like my reward, right? Significance is all of our reward in Team 50 and what that looks like in the history of our program. And so I think right now some of that is really laser focused, and I'm trying to secure a spot, as opposed to, hey, I'm just getting better every single day. And as I get better every day, that helps my team get better, and then helps us with our team goals and our team, initiative of, if we take care of the process and do the things that we think we're capable of doing, then the result is postseason, right? So that hunger is there, but we just need it to transcend that, hey, when that lineup's red, my name wants to be in it, as opposed to, hey, when my number's called, I'm going to do my job. If, I'm the ace in the circle, and then I pop out after an inning or two, I'm there still helping my pitchers. If I need to re-enter, I stay ready mentally. And so I think that's where we need to kind of, transcend our mindset and our mentality a little bit and understand, hey, this is something way bigger than I'm just trying to secure a starting role.
pitching was one of the big kind of things that was up in the air last year. Definitely a lot of different faces on the mound. How has that changed at all this year?
Sure.
Or
Yes, I think last year when you look at it, Heather really emerged, as the ace. And I think early on right now, this month of training, we've seen Macy and Heather and Bree emerge as probably the three that would get some considerable innings. I really like the development of Sophia, freshman, and Kate, as a senior. So I do believe all five will help us. What does that look like when you get into a game? We won't know. We have the data, we have the technology to be able to look at matchups going into it. We also, you're going to have your in-game gut. You're also going to have your in-game results and what they're telling you, who's working above the line, who's working below the line, when is it time to make a change. And I think the key to our success will be not worrying about what our leash looks like and not worrying about looking over our shoulder and is there going to be a change made? Because I don't anticipate right out of the gates that pitchers are just throwing 7 innings every time they get the game ball. It's how are we best offsetting timing, because that's what it's about, right? As a pitcher, you want to offset, and upset the timing of the hitter. And so the question we'll ask, and I'll be continually asking Coach Bell on the bench is, hey, what are you thinking here? As we're going in every inning, who's coming up next? Are we still working above the line? Do we like the direction that we're heading? When we make a decision, is what we're going to just as good or better? It doesn't mean the result's going to happen. We may make a change and then all of a sudden we lose a late lead. It doesn't necessarily mean that we should have made the change at that point in time. If we're making a change, it's because the numbers, what we're seeing out there is dictating that. And we got to all be patient and get those game innings. And hopefully by Big Ten play, we have settled into the best combination. Who works well handing the game ball to who? When we make those changes, what's the distance look like for each of those kids? But I really believe we're going to be pitching by committee, and I like our options.
do you think the looking behind the shoulder was an issue at all last year? And if it was, how did you?
Nothing trend wise that we've seen. I think that's human nature. I think any kid, a pinch hitter, the first thing they're going to complain about is, oh, it's so hard to pinch hit. If I don't get a hit, I won't get another pinch hit. If that's your mentality, you don't belong playing Division I softball in the Big Ten. Because, again, we've got very few kids when you look at them that are penciled in or penned in for 60 games. So you can't go out there with, playing safe or thinking, oh, I hope I perform. You take care of the process. Did I hit the ball hard? Did I see it well? And if not, what are those adjustments that I need to make? So I don't necessarily think that was an issue, but I do think mindset is everything in any game, any sport, and anybody could kind of lean on that as a crutch, but not in our program. We need to have lion mode mentality. It's got to be when my number is called, I'm ready. And we just really support each other, and it's all about we over me.
Austin, you can go ahead with your question on Zoom.
Hey, Coach. Hope you're doing well.
Doing great, Austin. Thanks.
Brooke was saying that 90% of the roster returns. I guess how rewarding is that for you that you're working with faces that you've worked with in the past and their strengths and weaknesses? I guess how nice is that for you?
Oh, that's huge. On the flip side of that, 90% of the roster returns. And we still have so many pieces of the puzzle to put together. But I really, truly believe we will be able to go from strength to strength. I don't think it's a situation. I mean, we've got a number of hitters and, we've had them do different things, whether they draft and pick teams, whether they create a lineup, and they saw very quickly how hard that is to do because the number of kids that we have, number of athletes that we have on our bench, that can do so many great things. And so it's nice for the comfort. It's nice for them knowing our system. And then the exciting thing is now we still can go to work and dive in and say, what do these matchups look like? What's going to give us the best opportunity to win a ball game? And it's going to be different every single game. It's going to be great as a staff. We're going to be able to argue a lot about who should be in the lineup. And those are great conversations. But it's not easy to make a lineup this season.
I guess I have another one. Brooke was saying, Team 50, how she embraces that. I guess how are you as a coach embracing this, historic year for the program, and how are you seeing the players do the same?
Well, when you think of Team 50 and 50 in general, I mean, think about whether it's anniversaries or, gosh, I don't know, 50 birthday doesn't sound as exciting. I'll be coming up on that shortly. But, when you think in terms of 50, that is tremendous. And we really are standing on the shoulders of some incredible talented, great women in this program. I mean, we really have a storied history. Now, I know we got to go back some time, right? And so we really want to shake things up and, kind of shoot out the gates this season and start tackling some things as far as records in the record book. And, we want to get this program to postseason because that was, a really tangible thing here, whether it was Big Ten titles, whether it was the Women's College World Series. And that's why we took this job here. We believe in Indiana. We believe in the mission, the values here. We're so excited about Scott Dolson, what he's done with the Excellence Initiative and women's sports. And you're seeing that, right? I mean, look at Terry and her crew and what they're doing on the women's side. And it's not, only Terry's program. You're seeing a lot of incredible things from women's programs here at the university. So when I think of Team 50 and the alumni here and how they're engaged right now, that was an awesome celebration. Gabby did a phenomenal job of just pouring her heart into it and her entire staff. You can see the state behind me and, the different women that came back and signed that. We had some legendary coaches here, Ann and Gail, the first coaches, Hutch, who just retired as the all-time wins leader. Her track came through IU as a GA and she was back in town. So I'm fired up about our past. My job amongst a lot of different things, and equipping and empowering our athletes is to be able to connect our past with our present. So we have an incredibly bright future. And I think my staff and our players are doing a really great job of that. And we really look forward to being on the road and seeing different faces that have worn the script. And when they're there, we'll invite them to eat with us or spend some time, pour into our athletes. And that's what it's really about.
I guess one final one. I know we ask coaches this every year. What's one word or phrase you can use to describe this team?
Is he asking all the questions you guys were going to want to ask? I think one word to describe them from a coaching perspective is just exciting. For me, it's kind of going to be like unwrapping gifts every single day. Sometimes you unwrap a gift and you're like, maybe it's not the right size or fit. But most times you unwrap a gift, what happens? You're pretty excited about what's inside that package. And so there are so many unknowns. And so I'm excited to unwrap that gift opening day. I'm excited, every single day we take the field to see who's going to show up because we don't have, you look, Cora, has all those rankings and what she's bringing the attention. We got so many kids on our roster where I'm like, man, this kid, I think, can hit 15 plus bombs. I think this kid can steal 30 plus bases. I think this kid could be a 15, 20 game winner in the circle. So it's, but there's a gap, right, between expectations and achievement. And that's our job as coaches to get us there. So I think for me, one word would be excitement. From them, I'm not sure. I'd be curious to see what they had to say. What'd they say?
We didn't ask them.
Oh, you didn't ask them. Okay. We'll have to ask the next bunch. But I'm excited with this group.
Yeah, I have a question kind of specific on the trips in Florida, and both weekends you're going to be playing really good teams. And so kind of starting off the season with such a big bang, how do you think that's going to kind of benefit the team moving forward, especially into Big Ten play?
We're going to be challenged early and often. And, Clearwater, both weekends are going to be great. The leadoff classic through the NFCA, that's our coaches association, and Carol Bruggerman, our executive director, and Joanna Lane, her staff, the entire staff is just phenomenal. And they have put together a great lineup. One of the focus points for them has been also our underrepresented community in the sport of softball. And so we have a number of HBCUs that are going to be at that tournament as well. And we get to match up with some of the best there. Howard was in the postseason, last year. Terry Tyson's done a nice job with that program. So that weekend, we're going to be challenged all weekend. The great thing too, before we even take the field, MLB is coming in and doing a clinic with the underrepresented community, and our team is going to participate in that. And, I think that's a great joy. I think we do a good job with our little CIS program, pouring into the next generation, that whole see her, be her. So I'm pretty fired up to be a part of that clinic. And then we can't wait to take the field. And then when you look at weekend two, it only gets tougher, right? You're talking traditionally top 20 programs. You're talking in one day, potentially facing 2 top 5 teams in the country. And that's what you want. Those are measuring sticks. I think what we've got to be is I really want to get out of the gates, win the games we need to win early. And when we have that lead, we got to be able to put games away opening weekend, which, opening weekend, there's no guarantees, right? You're getting out on dirt, first time for a lot of teams. A lot of things can happen, a lot of mistakes. And so for us, it's not going to be, how many things we do extremely well. It's how can we minimize the mistakes that we make and then capitalize on things that, we are, doing well. So early and often, be patient, manage those expectations, stay out of the interference. We've been talking to the team about windwards and those turbines and being up in the wind and really catching, greatness as opposed to being down with the interference. And if things don't go well early, we got to be okay with that and get better. Because that's how the schedule was built. It was built to be challenged, maybe knocked in the teeth a little bit, and get back up and being first up and having that first up speed. And then we go on a stretch, right? 4 weekends that can really widen that gap in terms of wins and losses.
You talked a little bit about the Ulysses program, but you elaborate more on that because yesterday was National Women and Girls in Sports, and your team did a job on Twitter where you posted their little sisters and talking about that. What do you see? Why is that important to this program? And also, how are you guys celebrating yourselves playing collegiate softball?
Yeah. Well, I smile every time I think of it because every video I've watched, they're just, how cute are those little kids, right? And the things that they're saying. And I tell you, words matter. Not only to be a big sis who's, playing collegiately, which is an incredible experience and opportunity. I mean, think about it. Our kids are the 2%ers. There's 20 athletes all over the United States that get to wear the Indiana script, and that's it. And so to represent an institution like Indiana, get the education that they're receiving here, to be able to lace up those cleats and put on a uniform that has Indiana on it, or the IU Trident, is such a strong, incredible brand. And so then how do we tell that story, right? And I appreciate, Chelsea and the Cuban Center, putting those videos together for us to get that out there. It's that whole concept, right? If you can see her, you can be her. Right. And so, when you're here on a little sis day and those kids are up in the stands and they have the jersey, of, one of our kids on their back and they're leaning over the railing, that's what it's about. They're seeing that and they want to be that and they're dreaming it. And this is a program, as a coach that I've been doing for 25 years. We started it over at IUPUI. That was my first head coaching job. And then 18 years at Marshall and now here. And, everything that I get to do as a coach, I think that is one of my greater joys because, when you talk in terms of that success and significance that I mentioned earlier, that lasts not just my lifetime, but that lasts several lifetimes. So you have all these young kids, and I've seen it at Marshall, and I've seen it here now too. We've had our first kid who was a Little Sis program, in the Little Sis program, who was committed to IU. How cool is that? So you have kids not only dreaming of, hey, they got all these wonderful role models and seeing how they react to adversity or just how they encourage, how they uplift. But you know what? They could be that. And there's no greater teaching than that shared experience.
Yeah, just about in terms of kind of which players could be freshmen or people who've been here for a bit, who's kind of made a big jump this offseason.
Yeah, gosh, we've maybe not necessarily freshmen. We know Cora and how excited we are about Cora, but Brooke, I think, is one to watch in terms of breakout season. I think she has very similar tools in terms of speed, power, potential. She's an athlete. The things that she can do, whether it's slots or glove work, pretty exciting stuff. I think Lindsay's going to have a breakout year behind we know what Lindsay does behind the plate. But I'm seeing some really good things offensively in practice and her growth. And so that's exciting to see. So some familiar faces that we've had in the lineup, and that's the beauty of having such a young team last year, because they're a year older in what they do. In the circle, Macy has made some incredible strides. We all knew in the recruiting process of her competitiveness and her fire, just the fire that she played. And we're starting to see that. And I really look forward to seeing how her and Heather and Bree, we saw what Bree did last year, and I think that's scraping the surface. I've never coached an athlete with the athleticism and the strength and the power and the speed. Bree can run bases. We're going to be careful with her a little bit because we want to keep her healthy and safe. But I tell you, what a tremendous athlete. So when then you look in terms, I know you asked about freshmen. I mentioned Leah a little bit earlier too, and what she's doing. She's competing at a really high level right now. You got Minnick, who was an all Big Ten performer as a freshman, hitting the ball super well last year. And so that's exciting. I think Sarah Stone is going to be somebody that power numbers, we're really going to hopefully rely on her as a big bat in the circle or over at first base. And then in terms of freshmen, I mentioned Taryn, right? She's super talented. She's going to make some plays look really easy up the middle. She's a good lefty stick. Cassidy Kettleman is a kid that's super athletic and competitive. And, she's somebody that could bounce in and out depending on our depth, infield, outfield, where we can utilize her in a number of different ways. Elle Smith is more of a speed kid. We'll be using her as a role player. I obviously mentioned Sophie and what she can do in the circle. She'll help us pitch by committee. She's got nice size, nice presence. I think as the whole, Chloe is another kid that provides us depth on the corners. You name it, these freshmen, they're really a talented group. And they're a group that has come in and has jumped right in with these returners, most of the roster returning. They've found their way. And I'm really pleased with what they're doing. So, overall, I think it's hard for me as a coach to talk about our team, because when I talk about our team, typically you're talking about a few kids that are returners that have been your all Big Ten performers, all region. They've been in the lineup every day doing different things. We just, with so many starting positions up for grabs, I didn't even talk about, Kinsey or Tatum in the outfield and what they add, and Dez. This is just a group that is super athletic and is going to give me options as a coach. And I look forward to, really trying to figure out what is the best lineup each game to help us be the most successful team that we can be.